25 years that we are 25 years old and 100 quarters old. 100 quarters have been horrible, very volatile, very chaotic. But the 25 years have been great. Yeah, because every regulator has got the mandate to grow the market and also to protect investor interests, and finding the balance between control versus, it's like accelerator and brake in a car.
Yeah.
Every regulator has to have a good brake but also have a good accelerator, and that balance is important. Fascinated about what happens that converts a cash flow of the company into the market cap of the company, or nowadays I should say the cash flow and the story of the company because there are a lot of companies without cash flow who still create market cap. So I think the two ingredients are cash flow and story, and the amalgam of that converts into market cap, and there is an so even though a lot of our companies are 100% owned by Edelweiss, we have unbundled them into standalone separate companies. And the idea of unbundling was to decomplexify or simplify the architecture, simplify the decision-making structure. So 10 years ago, I would end up making 100 decisions in a month. Now, it's a good month if I make one decision in a month,
Really?
which will be hiring a CEO in a business or doing some capital allocation or strategy planning. And we codify that also. Strategy, key people and culture issues as we call it, key risk and governance issues, and capital allocation. These are the four things because capital allocation and strategy go hand in hand.
Welcome to the Risk and Resilience podcast once again. We have again a very interesting guest, Mr. Rashesh Shah. He is the chairman of Edelweiss Financial Services. A very interesting career. Started off as a statistics graduate. Then he moved on to an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. Worked for 5-6 years in ICICI Bank, which he shall tell us about. And then suddenly decided that he had to throw it all up and start his own company. So welcome, Mr. Shah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Rizvi. Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. So let's start off with this question: that why did you throw everything up and you became a decent company you were working with and throw it up and become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, actually, ironically, when I come from a middle class Gujarati business family. My father had a small business, and I hated to be an entrepreneur. So the reason I went to Ahmedabad was so that I can be an officer, get a professional job.
To be an officer.
I wanted to be in an AC cabin and not work like an entrepreneur, especially a startup entrepreneur. So I went to ICICI for that. I was very convinced I'm going to retire from ICICI. But if you know, when economic liberalization started and there was a new India getting created, and I was in the export group of ICICI where I had clients like Infosys, which was a very small 100 people company at that time. So Mr. Narayan Murthy was one of the catalysts. He kept on telling me and my other colleagues, you guys should go and start your own company. This is new age of India. Entrepreneurs will do very well. And for 4 years, I kept on arguing with him how being an officer is better than being an entrepreneur in India. But I think it was the environment also. And if you look at between 91 to 95, Indian financial system underwent a change as we economically liberalized. So NSE came out in 94, FI started investing in 93, private mutual fund, private banks. So the entire financial system that we see today was effectively born in that 4-5 years era. We can connect the dots now looking in hindsight. At that time, I don't think we were as clear about it. But there was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement in the air about the new financial system of India. So we said,
And you decided to ride that
you
wave.
might as well give it a try.
Okay. So then tell us how you went through from 96 onwards till now. How did you grow your company? How did you build it? How did you, restructure it? How did you eventually list it? Tell us that quickly, that whole story.
So it's been a classical thing about having aspirations on one side, but what I call crossing the river by feeling the stones on the other side. So there are all these big aspirations are there कि ये करना है, वो करना है. But in India, I think the best strategy on a day-to-day basis, on a evolutionary basis, is to cross the river by feeling the stones because the world changes pretty fast. So we always had this, we want to build a new age, cutting edge financial services company which straddles capital market, insurance, credit, all the verticals in financial system. But I don't think we had a very clear end objective or a game plan. So we had this aspiration, and then we evolved over the years, and it's been what I would call a complete zigzag. Though when we made the plan, it was a nice linear Excel plan that we'll do this in year one, year two, year three. Like for example, in our 5-year plan, we said first year we'll make 30 lakhs, next year we'll make 50 lakhs, third year we'll make 1 crore, fourth year 1.5 crore, fifth year 2 crore. Good MBA Excel plan made on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
We made exactly 30 lakhs in the first year, so we were on the dot.
Hmm.
Second year we made 25 lakhs. We went backwards. Third year we made 18 lakhs, which was even backward. That was the Asian financial crisis and all that was happening.
97, 98.
Then fourth year we made a crore, and fifth year we made 11 crores. So very early on you learned that life is not linear. It's a lot more exponential, and there is uncertainty.
So, what was the surety that you had in yourself that kept you going in those 3 years and not make you go back to being an officer?
So it always goes on and on. But then we were getting good feedback from clients. We were doing work which we were enjoying a lot. We were truly, thinking out of the box. In fact, for example, we started doing investment banking. I had never done investment banking in my life. In ICICI, we were giving loans and all. But when you engage with entrepreneurs, with clients, we are finding solutions. We are truly solving problems. So the feedback was good. We could make ourselves, sustain. So we were not doing well, but we were covering cost because we kept our cost very low. So I think my last salary was, close to about 1 lakh rupees a month. When I started in ICICI, when I started Edelweiss, we started at 25,000 rupees a month. We said first 5 years, everybody's salary is frozen at 3 lakh rupees a year. And then you get bonuses. So we kept our cost low. So we were able to maintain and at least break even all the time. So we never lost money. But we are doing exciting work. And in fact, the story over the last 30 years has been also the story of India. So what has happened? I know I said that when we completed 25 years, that we are 25 years old and 100 quarters old. 100 quarters have been horrible, very volatile, very chaotic, but the 25 years have been great. So, and that is the story of India. When you see India over 30 years, it looks like, close to 7% GDP growth. Everything is very stable. India, from a distance, is always very stable. When you go near and if you see India on an everyday basis, is very chaotic, very, uncertain. We are going one step forward, one step backward, one step sideways. We don't know where we are going. But suddenly over 30 years, the market has given more than 100x return. So when you look India on a long-term basis, and we in Edelweiss have coined it, we call a bifocal approach to building a business. You have to keep one eye on the pitch and the keyed and the keychard of today, and you have to navigate through that. It's real keychard. And then you have to keep the other eye on the long-term payoff that is there, and you have to believe the process that if you navigate through the keychard, the long-term, you will achieve it.
So, on the financials, how did you grow eventually? Who gave you the capital? Where did it come from? Did you take debt?
No, we actually had our own money. So we, whatever savings we had, in fact, I convinced my parents to mortgage our house and also take 20 lakhs against that. So that was another reason I said we will not lose money. So we somehow, came to a crore of rupees. In fact, there is another story in that how India works, and the reason for 1 crore is because in those days, to get to Cat One, a merchant bank, you have to be a 1 crore capital. So eligibility was a crore rupees. So we had about 40-50 lakhs. Then either udhar se खींच काच के we got to a crore rupees. And we capitalized the company with 1 crore, and we were making our application for Cat 1, and overnight SEBI changed the rule to 5 crores.
Oh, God.
Because there are so many people who were applying for to be Cat 1. So
Okay.
there were some 300 Cat 1 out there. So they changed it to 5 crores. So we actually got our Cat 1 in 2001 after 6 years. And that just showed you that all your plans can go haywire with one change in the regulation. So I always said that in India, customers are very important, regulators are as important.
And you always talk about regulatory cholesterol, that you don't need too much and you don't need too little.
That is in India as a whole. But in financial services, I mean, again, if I take a very bifocal view, the 30 years regulatory environment has been beneficial for people like us because 30 years ago, it was like the Wild West. I mean, there was no insider trading norms, there were no rules. So I think SEBI, RBI, IRDA, all of them have created rules of the game. So in the financial system, I think there is a lot of positive. I think India as a whole, over the last maybe 10 to 15 years, the regulatory cholesterol, as we have grown very fast and few mistakes have happened, I think the regulatory cholesterol has gone up and we need to deregulate to grow faster and to innovate.
So, but finding the right balance is the important thing,
Absolutely.
which is why the policymakers should continue to interact openly with all the people in the business world.
Yes.
So, you guys do all that stuff.
Yeah, because every regulator has got the mandate to grow the market and also to protect investor interests, and finding the balance between control versus, it's like accelerator and brake in a car.
Yeah.
Every regulator has to have a good brake but also have a good accelerator, and that balance is important. I think last 8-10 years, because of the NPAs in the banking system and all the house of debt and all that, we have gone maybe a little bit more cautious, ILFS and all that. I think maybe the time has come to go back a little bit and allow the accelerator to go a little bit faster.
And let some of them fall by the wayside, which is
Some mistakes will happen, and
Yeah.
we need to have some tolerance for that.
So you had once said that you wanted to do an HDFC for Edelweiss. And why did you say you wanted to do an ICICI Bank for Edelweiss?
No, actually, all these are great organizations: HDFC, ICICI, Kotak. So actually, we also, and even globally, we look at Berkshire Hathaway, Blackstone, Goldman Sachs. So there are so many really highly admirable financial services models that have been there. I think HDFC obviously is the gold standard with the bank and insurance and mutual fund and everything. So it was just an example, but I think ICICI is as good, Kotak is as good, Blackstone is as good.
So, but you're able to do an HDFC for Edelweiss?
We are still very small. I mean, but the idea is to see the good of all. I mean, I've always felt a lot of the peers we have, there is so much good you can learn from that. And that's a good thing about being small and late into the market, that you can copy the best of that. So yeah, our long-term aspiration would be to have the brand name of an HDFC, to have the gold platedness of an HDFC. But ICICI is very innovative, very entrepreneurial. That is where all of us grew up. Same thing, Kotak has been very, very conservative, but at the same time grown at the good pace. So I think India, there are about 30-40 companies I admire across, not just financial services. And the idea is to take a little bit of good from everybody, try and copy it. I find copying is a lot easier than actually trying to do it on your own. And there are good examples there for you to at least say, maybe I can try this.
I hope the students are not listening to you. So you were able to list, and you did a very good listing. So what are the experiences, the ups and downs in the listing, and then the eventual demerger? I think you broke your company up into several subordinate companies. What was that about?
So the story on that goes, we when we listed, we were still one conglomerate, and one of the things I learned, though we grew up in capital markets, I've always been fascinated about what happens that converts a cash flow of the company into the market cap of the company, or nowadays I should say the cash flow and the story of the company, because there are a lot of companies without cash flow who still create market cap. So I think the two ingredients are cash flow and story, and the amalgamation of that, the amalgam of that converts into market cap. And there is an alchemy that is at play, which somewhere, if you are making, say, 100 crores of profit a year, suddenly you are worth 3,000 crore. That is what the market says. And how does that happen? And that is what I also learned when we got listed and the post listing. I think the market says, we'll convert your cash flow and your story into a market cap, given there are 5 or 6 things you do well, which is, I think, one is governance. The second is a growth. Third is profitability and quality of your earnings. Fourth is communication, constant communication. The market requires a lot of communication to investors. Fifth is, stability, continuity. That's why market people talk about succession planning and all of that.
Okay.
So when you have this ingredient, then you become a listed company. And if you can achieve all of this, then the market really values you. And the alchemy happens where you convert today's cash flow into the market cap. Otherwise, think about it. If you make a crore of rupees of profit a year, suddenly market is saying you are worth 30, 40, 50 crores. Or you have a story which says, I will get the cash flow.
Very well
So
explained.
that was
Yeah.
actually the fascinating insight I got when we got listed. And then we evolved as a conglomerate. So we were one company which had multiple. We kept on growing into adjacent markets. We started with investment banking, then got into broking, then a little bit of wealth management, then we got into insurance, then NBFC and housing finance, and we kept on ARC. So we kept on adding businesses, but in one conglomerate structure. But somewhere around 8-10 years ago, we realized that that conglomerate was very inefficient. It was very complicated. There were too many matrix reporting relationships. There was too much MIS where people were getting shadow credit, and we didn't know who was using how much capital, who was contributing what, because everything was one big joint family system out there. So about 10 years ago, we embarked on this journey of saying, let's unbundle. So even though a lot of our companies are 100% owned by Edelweiss, we have unbundled them into standalone separate companies. And the idea of unbundling was to decomplexify or simplify the architecture, simplify the decision-making structure. So 10 years ago, I would end up making 100 decisions in a month. Now, it's a good month if I make one decision in a month,
Brilliant.
which will be hiring a CEO in a business, or doing some capital allocation or strategy planning.
So that means that you are following the organization behavior lesson at IIM Ahmedabad about deregulation and decentralization to the hilt.
Absolutely, but it's not that easy. I mean, there are pros and cons of centralization versus decentralization. But we had become a very monolithic company with a lot of divisions which were all very unique and individual, and our architecture became very complicated, and we also operate in regulated industries, so the risk governance compliance becomes very important. So the governance of insurance is very different. The compliance and governance of insurance is very different from NBFC housing finance. So in a very centralized structure it became hard. But unbundling, the hardest thing of unbundling is not actually the actual intellectual reason for unbundling, is the emotional and the personal reason around unbundling, because you give up control, and that is one of the hardest things. In fact, the older I've got and the more businesses I've seen around me, a lot of I think business decisions are made around ego and control, not only around value creation. Because people say वो मेरी सुनता नहीं है, मेरा I have no involvement in this. So we had to undergo all of that also. Our entire culture changed from control to value creation. We said we don't care about control, we care about value creation. And the real religion is value, not control, not.
So you learned by experience.
And the hardest thing for me last 8-10 years is almost every meeting, my inner dialogue has to be keep your mouth shut.
In a meeting also.
No, in the sense, my inner dialogue, because
Okay.
you want to jump in, you want to, come up with answers very quickly. So I've also had to change in the last 8-10 years as we unbundle. So unbundling was not just a very,
So how did you keep the spirit and culture of Edelweiss, which you created with so much pain and care over the last 15, 20 years of that monolith, which you call it that? How did you keep that culture from staying within these 10 or 11 conglomerates that you created?
So I think the first on that is to find the right leaders who are
Okay.
aligned with you. Because if you get the wrong person, then no matter how much you do, how many communication, how many employee engagement, how many activities you do, so that will fall flat. So we do a lot of work on the people side, the leadership. So out of our 8,000 people, about 100 people are in the leadership category. And those 100 we work very closely, and we make sure that they are aligned with the culture, the ideas create, values protect slogan of Edelweiss is very important to all of us. So once you create that, then you have at least created half the battle is won. Then you have a lot of processes like communication, act and walk, and make sure the culture remains the same. We also codified it, our guiding principles. Every business has their own guiding principles also. We have Edelweiss guiding principles. All of that is like the preamble to the Constitution of India, which lays down what we will be and what will not be, or what we will do and what we will not do. So I think all those things are enablers. But if you can get your people right, then at least the leadership right, then everything gets
So
easier.
you somewhere, I mean, connected to this preamble point that you just made, you come out with a Novama dispatch once very periodically, and how much of a role do you have put into it? What is the last one? What was it like? What are the main things you said?
So that, I think, in the early days the involvement is highest, and then in fact the objective is your involvement should become zero. So I think last maybe 5 7 years my involvement has been zero, and that is true with all our businesses. It's like, your kids when they are young, your involvement is very high. As they get older, you are not aloof, you are not completely detached, you are interested, but you are not as involved. So we continue to remain more and more interested in value creation. So with all our businesses we get involved. We actually have two things. One is where we get involved, which are the four things, we codify that also. Strategy, key people and culture issues, as we call it, key risk and governance issues, and capital allocation. These are the four things, because capital allocation and strategy go hand in hand. So these are the four things where we get involved. Outside of these four things, we are happy to get involved in the smallest thing if they want it. So
Okay.
suddenly some business, one guy will come and say, we are designing this new brochure, what do you think? And my thing is, why are you asking me? But if they want it, I'm happy to be involved. So it's like your kids. If my son wants to come and ask me, should I buy a blue shirt or a white shirt, I'll get involved. But am I really adding value by getting involved?
So
Answer is no.
because you have so much time now, that's why you have been participating in the Ironman, and you're a great marathoner, and you go all over the world to run marathons. Is that because you diversified, delegated, and you're happy and content?
Yeah, I think partly true. I have brought down the workload, especially. Yeah, there are two kinds of work we all do. One is what is called urgent and important, and the other is urgent, important and not urgent. Slowly and steadily, I moved a lot of my work to important and not urgent. So there are some 18 20 projects in Edelweiss Group that I'm involved in. I'm on the boards of that. So there is enough there, but the urgent decision making, urgent, kal client ka call aa gaya and you take a 5 o'clock flight in the morning, and all that has gone away, because now there are younger leaders who are taking care of that. They are the day to day owners of their businesses. In fact, though we unbundled for simplicity and value unlocking reasons, the best outcome of that was an unintended, which is we got a phenomenal leadership whose ownership has gone up in their businesses. So we discovered that suddenly getting out of the way allowed them to unlock their ownership also.
Mm.
So, and partly I think all this running and half Ironmans and all, it's a hobby more than anything else. I started off to stay fit, but now it's become more a hobby. Have got a lot of friends. We all train together. So now I put it in a hobby category rather than either the midlife crisis category or a to stay fit category. It's just fun. We go around the world. We run marathons. We do half Ironmans and we party. So it's a way of
So you earned it. You earned it well.
just enjoying.
So let's go to the more serious topic about the Indian economy and markets. So in the Indian economy, you've always mentioned that the role of savings. So can you tell us about the situation currently we have, and how do we compare with peers in the rest of the world?
So India has always been a high savings country. We have become even higher after in the last 30 years. And savings is the heart of it. It's like where Gangotri starts, because if you don't have savings in any country, then your investments will not happen. So, but India, we were a country of savers, and we are learning to be a country of investors, because saving itself is only half the battle. You converting savings into if you save money and just keep it in cash in your cupboard as a household, you are not really creating future income. Only when you convert the savings into investments. And I think in the last 10 15 years, as a country, as households in India, we are now learning how to convert savings into investments. We are still halfway there, and that is where all your SIPs and all that have grown. Now we are also, alternatives is growing, because we are saying, part of my savings into investment can be illiquid. I can buy REIT, I can buy real assets, I can do. So I think we are evolving on the investment side from saving side. 30 years ago, your parents, my parents were just happy to save. All of us are learning to be comfortable with investment. With investment comes higher return and higher volatility and higher maybe emotional cost of volatility
Mm.
when you see suddenly 3% fall, 5% fall in the markets, and so all that comes with that, but you got a higher return. And as a country, I think we also need to learn to convert our savings into investments much more smartly, and that ultimately in economics what we call ICOR, incremental capital output ratio, that India has not improved. And ICOR is not only about savings to investment, is the investment enabling environment and your architecture of your economy and all. But India currently operates at an ICOR of about 4-ish. I think we can improve that a lot
So
more.
just break it down. Incremental capital output ratio of 4-ish means capital of 4 gives a growth of 1.
Yeah. So we use 4 units of capital for 1 unit of growth. We are between 4.5. We used to be even worse. We used to be 7 and 8. So for example, if our savings rate is say 30%, and assuming our investment rate is also 30%, 30 divided by 4 will be 7.5. So
Mm.
if you have an investment rate of 30 and you get a GDP of 7.5, your ICOR is 4. But if you have an investment rate of 30 and your ICOR is 3, you're getting 10% growth. So ICOR has to come down. You want lower amount of capital
Efficiency of
for
capital.
which efficiency of your economy, which is capital formation, capital allocation, savings, all of that. So we have improved, but for the last many years we are stuck between 4 and 5. We should be somewhere between 3 and 4.
So you think deregulation and decholesterolization will make a big difference?
Yeah, deregulation, long-term planning, making the right investments. Like we have a lot of household savings, and I always feel the government can play a big role in architecting rather than saying iska tax change kiya. You will give some incentive for mutual fund, then you will give some for insurance and some for bank deposits. And rather than tinkering every year, you should have a 20-30 year hypothesis कि इतना savings
Okay.
है, they'll go here, this will go towards capital formation.
Something like the corporate tax rate was brought down about 10 years ago to 22%. Has that made a difference?
It has made a difference, and no, it has not made a difference.
Okay.
The reason it's made a difference because corporate obviously have a much stronger balance sheets, but idea was to get corporates to invest, which has not happened. So the private sector investment has been lacking for the last 8-10 years. But part of that was also the incentives that you create via the banking system, this entire risk taking and the cost of risk taking that we have created.
So is that because all those who have, say, inherited wealth, business empires, or new wealth, all of them are moving towards investing in the stock market, which is rising?
Partly, yes. Partly, it is also intergenerational wealth transfer is going on. But partly, we now have two categories of entrepreneurs: entrepreneurs who have already created wealth and entrepreneurs who want to create wealth. The entrepreneurs who want to create wealth are doing a lot of innovation. So we see all the startups and all of that. तो जहाँ पे wealth है नहीं, वहाँ पे people are willing to take risk and do startups and innovate. And there's a lot of innovation going on at that level. People who already have wealth are playing it safe. They are starting family offices and they are investing into markets and all that because they are saying if I can make about 15-16% as an investor, why should I be an entrepreneur? Because the cost of being an entrepreneur has gone up with all this, from tax to, regulatory regime to the kitch what I call the kitch of everyday life. So in Edelweiss, we have also coined a phrase called ROKP. In India, we always look at ROA and ROE. So all the
Yeah.
multinationals who come to all the foreigners, they all talk about ROA, ROE.
Mm.
And I tell them also talk about ROKP, which is return on kitch. And India has one of the most amount of kitch that is required anywhere else in the world. And you ask any foreigner, they're saying amongst all the countries that you invest in, India is more complex than any other country. The paperwork, that the taxation regimes, all the uncertainty around that. So India has actually a lot of kitch. I need equity, but I also need the kitch to be able to do. And most entrepreneurs in India who actually succeed, They know how to do ROKP, how to get
Okay.
return on pitch, how to solve issues around ye allowed hai, ye nahi allowed hai, how do I find a way, not get caught in some trap.
So unbundling processes of regulation is something which is very important. And having worked in government so many years, I completely agree with you. There are too many processes. There's some kind of
Exactly.
deregulation that we need to do from within. So the other thing that I'd like to ask you is that all the time you've been here in Mumbai, earlier Bombay, you've been moving around from city to city in India. So do you see any difference in the business environment between, say, the main business cities in the country?
Yeah, actually, and it also keeps on changing, and it's been fascinating. I mean, that there are a lot of India is one of the few countries like US is where there is a lot of diversity of business activity. So if you go to the US, you will find business activity in New York, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in Seattle, in Dallas,
Okay.
in most of the other countries. If you go to UK, it's mainly I think London and maybe a little bit in Aberdeen. So there is most countries are very concentrated in one city, two city. India, China, and US are the ones very diverse. So India, may if you go to Bhopal is very different, Indore is different, and I love to go around India, especially tier two, tier three cities. But the three major business cities in India are Bombay, Delhi, and Bangalore, where still a lot of activity is going on. And I've been fascinating how different they are. They all appear the same, but when Bangalore is like somebody in their early 30s, very enthusiastic about ideas, and they'll drink beer. So I call Bangalore about beers and ideas. Then you
Okay.
come to Bombay, which is like a middle age, late 40s kind of a guy who's drinking wine, who's now can't afford to drink beer. And it's more than ideas, it's about a financial matrices. So in Bombay, the business conversation is market cap kya hai, size kya hai, ROE kya hai.
Revenue and
And
wine.
so Bombay is about finance and drinking wine, while Bangalore is about ideas and drinking beer. Then you go to Delhi, which is very different. Delhi is about drinking whiskey,
Single malt and
especially
that.
Black Label now evolved to single malt, but also talking about connections and relationships. So Delhi is not in Delhi. You come up with the idea of a new startup, it will fall flat. In Delhi, if you talk about some big market cap and how this can grow and all, doesn't. But you say, this government minister aa raha hai party mein, everybody will come. So I think building connections and relationships,
Uh,
and a lot of that. So in Delhi, that is valued, and that I call it is when you are become, when you are in your 50s and all, you realize relationships are important, connections are important. So Delhi is all about connectivity, about relationships, and about drinking whiskey. So very different culture. This is obviously a very crude categorization of that, but they're all very fascinating, and they really add to the heterogeneity of India business
exactly. And
environment.
all three put together, they bring in everything that you need to do, run a country properly. So this has been a fascinating and a very frank conversation. I thank you entirely for that. So on a last point, given that you are a half Ironmaner or full marathoner and all those things, what is your suggestion for new kids who've just come out of, say, an MBA school and they're getting into entrepreneurship? What would you like to advise them how to take their life forward?
So I think the one thing that has now become more harder and harder is focused attention and long term, because I think we are all in a hurry, and there is a lot of c- comparison. There is because of all the social media and all. But if anybody is starting an entrepreneur journey or a career today, I would say have a long term approach. Allow the long term compounding to work in your life. It's like SIPs. SIPs have worked very well because you do a little bit, form a habit around consistency, which gives you real payoff over a longer term. And you have to believe in the process. You have to have faith in the process that if I do this over a long term, it pays off. Good habits over a long term pay off. In fact, I also nowadays talk about not just SIP in financial investing, but SIP in health and in relationships. If you do a little bit of investing in your relationships over a period of time, I think there is equal payoff. And same thing about health, 8-10 minutes, 10-15 minutes of exercise, both physical mental side of it. In fact, the other thing I advise people is our human bodies are designed to be idle. So you have to make it work. You have to move. Any movement is good. Yoga, swimming, running, walking, anything you do. The human mind is designed to be always moving, and you have to work hard to keep it still. So spend about 30 minutes a day between keeping your body moving and your mind inactive, whether through meditation or whatever. All these are good habits to cultivate. So if you're starting your career or this thing, just believe long term, because long term it will work out if you keep on investing consistently.
Excellent, brilliant. And for one-liners, we'll come back to you again. That was absolutely brilliant and very nice of you to talk to us. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Really enjoyed this.
Thank you.